Hey everyone, Steve Morales here, and we are with Aaron Baulch of Mindful Body Fitness, which is a MoveNat affiliate gym and Restorative Exercise affiliate gym, right?
Yeah, we're a MoveNat Tulsa.
Okay.
So it's a MoveNat licensed facility and a nutritious movement affiliate.
Okay, and today we're going to be covering some knee problems. I went to the physical therapist. I've been having some problems with my knees. They've just been hurting because I've been tweaking with my form for about a year and a half now, so I've just been overdoing it. So Aaron's actually going to cover some stuff that you can do at home that is going to help. If you have general knee pain, it's going to help with some of that. We're actually going to be backtracking everything. So if this is you, definitely watch this video. And we're going to cover a handful of different things today that a lot of people don't know about, because most people just go to the gym and they just start heavy loading everything or go to a physical therapist. So we're actually going to backtrack from that. So thanks for watching.
Okay, so as I'm walking up, what I want to do is find what we consider as a generally straight foot. In that position, a lot of people will just simply come up and they stand and they load themselves. And so this is what Stephen was talking about backing things up. We're going to back it up to the absolute baseline, but the absolute necessities. So I'm going to find straight feet. The outside edges of my feet are relatively straight. Sometimes when people get in this position, they do feel a little bit of a tweak in their knees. I always will let them come out just a little bit from there. But let's try to find straight feet. And then from that straight foot position, we just simply follow a line up the ankle, the knee, and up into these two bony processes in front of the hip, right? Top part of the pelvis. And that's where we drop out of the pelvic channel and our legs are straight. So Steve can catch this action right here too.
Got it.
And then second is going to be to notice where your hips are in space. So if my hips are, my pelvis is forward, there's all kind of interesting load happening. So what I want to do next is just simply back my hips up. And so you might come around and then from the side you can see that, Steve, and we can do. So this is where most people stand. And this is going to put a lot of pressure in a lot of places. So I'm going to back my hips up. So now my hips are this point here in line with my knee and my ankle. And a lot of people are going to feel like they're going to fall down from here, right? And then we want to check in to see, are we gripping our thighs and our glutes? We want to learn to let those guys go. So step one in this is coming up the chain from the feet. We then drop the ribs down and ramp the head back. So then my posture happens, my alignment happens, right, naturally. This takes work. So step one is straight feet, back the hips up, drop the ribs, and ramp the head back. So try that, and we'll go into step two. All right, so this is step two in our little movement series here to protect the knees. We went over what straight feet is, where our stance should be, and so secondly is looking at the direction that when our knees bend, the direction that they bend based on the alignment of where the back of our legs, our hamstring tendons, we'll call them our knee pits, are facing. So Steve's dropped the camera down, and I found that position that we went over in the first segment, and to all people, mostly, it looks like my legs are relatively straight because my knees should be facing forward. So I'm going to then rotate my legs or my upper thigh bones out using the muscles in my hips, so that now actually the knee pits or the back side of my legs are actually facing the direction they should be going. So here's what happens. If I don't do that and I just let my legs be and I bend my knees, they will collapse in. When I rotate my knee pits to straighten them out, it lifts my ankles, lifts my arches, and then I can bend my knees. And now it's a proper line. So then if I spin around, you can see it from the back side, I find straight feet, outer edges of the feet parallel with one another, legs dropping right out of the pelvic channel. And then here's the first one. I'm just going to collapse it in. You should be able to see my knee pits here, my hamstring tendons, are not facing the camera. They're angled out.
So I'll do that really too. So
Okay,
it's here, and that's literally going off that direction.
Yeah, it's
and
crazy.
this one is going off that direction.
So if we don't pay attention to that, and like Steve's been talking about his knees, if we don't pay attention to that, and we just simply bend our knees, we get this what's called valgus collapse. It's just kind of a dropping in of the knee. And that puts a lot of pressure in a lot of places, but typically on the inside of the knee. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that little rotation. It comes way up from the hip. I'm going to rotate out. Rotate out. That's going to spin my hamstring tendons or my knee pits straight toward the mirror. So we got it, see?
Yep.
Yeah? Yeah, cool. So then now you can see my inner arches of my feet lift. And then when I go to squat, it takes a lot of control. I'm just bending my knees forward, but now it takes it in the correct alignment and the correct direction it's supposed to go. So if I was to then think about squatting, and I do that exact move, so it's creating this rotation out. Now my knee pits are facing back, and then I can think about squatting in a better line.
And you can see, I mean, like you can see the line is here.
Yeah.
It flows straight back.
Right, as opposed to this, which is what happens.
Now
Here.
we're.
And then what happens is sometimes people go, oh, I have to drive my knees wide, bang, like that, and we get a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
We get a lot of pressure, right?
Yeah, a lot of pressure on that side of the knee, which
Right.
is what I'm going through.
Right, yeah, and so this is something that I have used personally through nutritious movement and through the system that I study to really start to backpedal. It's literally like way back to reset the framework so that my legs and my knees and my hips are much safer when we do this. So the next piece, that kind of concludes step 2. The next piece is to look at 2 places that we really need to make sure that, that things are working right or that the length is right. So we'll look at that in step 3. Okay, so step 1 was just looking at what proper alignment is and stance. So we all know now that when we step up, the stance, it always happens the same. For this baseline, happens the same. Ultimately, we can do a bunch of different things, but right now, the basic baseline stance is the outer edges of the feet straight. Might make us look a little bit pigeon-toed because most of us have been jammed in shoes our whole lives, so our toes have been jammed up. And then second, we're looking at the ankle, knee, and these front little points on the front side of our top side of our pelvis are lined up, and that's a plumb line dropping down. So this little apparatus is a half dome, and one of the most important things when we squat is that our calves are tight. That's weird. It's tight because most of us have been in shoes that lift our heel, that have heels that lift our heels up and pitch us forward. So where it's as if we're walking downhill all the time. So we want to make sure that when we squat, we actually have some length back here. So it's super important. Number 1 is to slowly transition to a minimal base shoe. Ask Steven about that and he can help you with that because that's something that he really does well. Secondly would be to, hey, let's lengthen our calves out. So we find our stance, and I'm behind the half dome. So I'm behind the half dome, I'm going to weight shift just a little bit into this left leg. I'm going to bring my right foot forward to where these knuckles, the base knuckles of the foot, are on the apex of the half dome. When I put them down, I'm then going to do in the second piece that we did, I'm going to do that kind of rotation action, starting up here, and that will lift the ankle of the foot that's stretching. And then I'm going to let my toes kind of chill out. So then I'm going to check in, and I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to check in and see if I'm gripping my quad. I was, so I'm going to drop that down. I'm going to drop my ribs down, and then most of my weight should be in this heel. So then, that's not too much of a stretch for me today. So if that doesn't feel like it's too bad, I can then start to slowly inch my way forward. Continuing that kind of rotation out, and then standing tall, ribs down. So I'm going to hang here. You guys can see my quad might be gripping. I'm going to try to relax it. So we're going to release the quad and release the glute. This is a big stretch on the back side of my right calf. So dropping my ribs, so common compensations. You'll see, because people's calves are tight, you'll see all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to turn to the side so Steve can get this. I'm going to reset same way. Step up and show common compensations. So I'll step back into that position. It might be something, so should be, and Steve can tell me, am I relatively straight, man?
Yeah.
Yeah, so here, the weight is mostly over this leg, the stretching leg. But if this is really tight, which it is for most people, they're going to do stuff like this. And they're going to run from the tightness of the calf. It might not be so exaggerated, it just might be like this. They might have to put their hands out like this. If that's the case, we simply drop the half dome down and it's not quite as much of a stretch. So we might get something smaller, like a rolled up towel, a rolled up washcloth, something like that, a book. So as I'm hanging here, simply just breathing, checking in. Am I gripping? Am I gripping? Are my ribs down? And is my head ramped back? So that's the first piece. What I always do at the end of this stretch is to make sure that I try to bend this knee. Keeping the standing leg, the one that's not stretching, keeping it straight and bending this knee. Just a little bit. So that changes the place, the location of the stretch. It goes down towards the front, down towards the bottom, down way more around the heel, down in the Achilles tendon. But also, here's something that's really key. By doing this, I start to help this, which is really crazy. And guess what? This is a major piece of squat. So we have to make sure that we have mobility there. So keeping the standing leg straight and bending the knee. But then Steve, step behind me and then check this out. So if I don't roll these guys out and practice this, so I'm getting my knee bent straight. There's the bending of the knee. If I don't do that, and I let everything collapse in, check that out. So we want to avoid that as much as we can. So we have to make the repetitions and the practice as solid as possible. So it always happens the same way. Always happens the same way so that we don't revert back to poor movement patterns and go back into our compensations. So that's why what Steve was talking about is we're stepping back so that ultimately we can take big steps forward. All right, so this is just a kind of an aside note. We talk about a lot of time here at Mindful Body Fitness, we talk about the ability to lift and lower your kneecaps, the ability to relax your kneecaps. I know that in the restorative exercise specialist school and nutritious movement, we talk about, it's often said, are you brushing your teeth with your kneecaps? I think that's a really funny statement, which means that are you always in constant tension? So I have a bodybuilding background and I lived like this for a long time and I didn't even know what it was to let my kneecaps relax. So here in the studio, a movement that we practice is this simple lifting and lowering of the kneecaps. I say it's simple, but it's not easy. So a lot of people will go, I don't even know what that is. Their brain map is detoured. So our brain is telling this to move, but it's such a massive detour and it's so blurry that can't happen. They are so tight and so tense from, usually it's having a bent knee because they've been in a heel so long, or they're a pelvic thruster. So it's simply the alignment the way they're standing. So what we do is we come over here and we find a wall, take the load off of the lower body, and then I can just kind of drop my legs back and push my upper body into the wall. It's just a comfortable position. And then we should be able to find this ability to lift and lower. So this is a homework assignment that I give often to people that I work with here. And it seems like a homework assignment should be go jog 2 miles or do all this crazy stuff, when most of the time we just need to simply back up and find some control and see the tension that is being created or that is always in our legs, and be able to learn to let that go. So I just do a few repetitions here, and then that then translates into my ability, if I step over here on the tile, to find when I rotate my legs and do all the stuff that we've done in the first 3 steps and I get my knee pits straight, I can then notice if I'm gripping my thighs. So what happens a lot of times is that we will do this move with our thighs. And Stephen and I were talking about that a little bit ago. And so if you're doing this with your thighs, then we're creating a bunch of tension here all the time. And so then you go into a squat and there's already just this crazy tension. Rather than understanding that, yeah, we want to create torque, we want to be able to turn the legs in for a good solid squat, but it needs to happen a little bit higher as well. So up here. And then the knees should be able to, we should be able to create that tension versus relaxation when we need it. So practice that and have fun. Okay, so we're going to move into to creating a little bit of length and the front side of the thighs. So a lot of times we talked about in the last segment, we were lifting and lowering our kneecaps, that that the thighs are really tense. They just are. We hold a lot of tension there. And so 2 options. Sometimes people will say, well, my knees hurt when I get down onto the ground. In here in the studio, we have these awesome wrestling mats, so that's usually not something that we have to deal with. If that is the case for you, when we get into the second movement here, make sure that you use a couple of yoga mats, maybe a rolled up really thick towel, and then that will help support your knees. So the first one is I'm sitting in this little like elementary school chair that we use a lot here. So I'm going to slide my hips to the left, and I'm going to create a 90-degree angle from my ankle to my knee to my hip. And then I'm going to drop this leg, the leg that's unsupported. I'm just going to help it, and I'm going to drop it back. So a lot of times this position is not a position that people are able to do right away if they're learning to squat, again, or if they've had some kind of injury throughout the lower body. So this helps them find stability with the chair, and it's not as evasive on this down knee. So we can find ultimately that we try to lengthen back, and then all I'm trying to do here is keep these bones, these front 2 bones, relatively flush, and then if I look down over the top of this leg, I can see the inside part of my right foot. So there'll be quite a bit of length here for most of us because of how much time we spend sitting. That's a whole other animal in itself. But this is a great place to start. So this is supported half kneeling. Half kneeling, if we wanted to do it unsupported, I would just take this chair out and slide it out, and it would look something like this. So for those of you that don't have super sensitive knees, this may be a position that you want to go to. So again, 90 degrees, ankle, knee, hip, squared off front side of the pelvis, ribs dropped down, and then I can go here, I can go here, I can even give a little self-massage here, but we're going to feel this all the way down the front side of the left leg. Okay, so that's the first piece, that's half kneeling. We would do that for both sides. So I'm going to slide this chair back in, I'm going to move my foot forward, square this guy back up. And then for those of you that are more advanced, you might not need a chair. For those of you that are trying to learn how to get to the ground, this is how we teach it here at the studio. We make it from the chair. So I'm sitting here in the chair, and then I want to get to the ground to what's called tall kneeling. So I just simply reach forward, transfer my body weight forward, and bring my knees down. I'll slide my knees in to where they're directly underneath these same points we keep going back to, and then I'll walk my hands back and sit tall. So tall kneeling is this, and again, we're just simply trying to find this flush, 2 points here and the top of the pubic bone, and dropping my ribs down. When you find this position, some people are going to be jumping all over, there'll be movement, there'll be a lot of movement deep internally, and so it's a good place to start. The second piece to this, and then again, if you have really tight thighs, you'll feel this right here. So we're starting to create that length to take pressure off of the knee. The second piece, if you want to venture into this, is that my hips are going to drop back. This is a hinge. I'll slide my hands down my thighs and plant them onto the ground. So I pull my shorts up here. So the angle is straight again from these 2 points. And I'm just sitting back. For me today, that's about it. That's about it. I get a lot of length here and across the top part of my shin and the top part of my foot. So it's a great top of the foot stretch, a great front of the shin stretch, and it comes around the top of the knee and lengthens out the top of the thigh. So here, so maybe this is where you are. Hang here for a few seconds, a few breaths. Make sure you know your boundaries, you find your edge, and you don't go past your edge. And then we'll hinge and we'll sit back up. Hanging out to tall kneeling. Take a few breaths and then drop back again. So we'll come back. Maybe this time you're feeling a little bit better and you want to venture into a little rocking, a little shin rocking. And so it's simply dropping your hips to the right and to the left. So I'm dropping to the right. I feel this all down the right side of my leg and in my right hip, and then down maybe the right side of my shin. I'm going to drop back across to the left. So this could be as simple as here. Making sure that the knees are in a comfortable position. Or it could get to where you've done this a few times and maybe you don't need your hands and you begin to drop this way. So again, knowing your boundaries is super important here. When we're ready to come out, we walk the hands forward, we tuck the toes, press the hips up, roll up and over the toes, and we find the chair and sit tall. So those two movements are half kneeling, both assisted and unassisted, tall kneeling, and then kicking back into the shin rock to create length and begin to stretch out the top part of the thighs. So this is the final piece. We want to make sure that we kind of hit the outer part of the hip. We get really, really tight here. And we're going to show a couple of movements. Steve's going to demonstrate, I'm going to talk, so that you guys can practice this maybe when you go to the gym, maybe when you finish up your workouts, maybe you can do it at night when you're just at home. So he's just going to lay to his back and maybe turn a little bit this way so they can see from the side. There you go. Yeah. So he's on his back, and we're going to do it from this side so you can see what he does with his leg. And he's just going to pick this leg up, the shin, and he's going to place his lower part above the ankle, not on the ankle, across this knee. So I'm going to come a little bit more towards me with this foot. Yeah, so he's not putting pressure on the ankle. And then to save the knee a little bit, he can kind of flex the foot. Yeah, and he might already feel he might already feel this, and he might feel this, because we're doing some work in here, and he's kind of figuring out a lot of stuff today. And so this is cool. If this is it, this is fine. And what he will do if maybe he was going to a class or something like that, and they go into this position, and everybody else lifts their leg up, so do it, Steve. So you'll lift this leg, and really, there's a lot of tightness here, but all he's doing, and his face is like crinkling up, and he's making all kind of cool faces. He's really just using all of this right here. It's getting a little bit, so take it down. So all I'm going to ask him to do, and this is something that you guys have to do at home, and is to, again, I've said this a few times, know your boundaries, and know, is this enough, right? He could simply take his right hand here, and he could just offer just a little bit of pressure. He could even just lift up his toe, and that offers a little bit more pressure. Right? He could maybe put this foot up on a little towel and start to increase it. But the idea here is that when he lifts this leg, if he chooses to, he could use a strap where he pulls in between, and he does it with the thighs, right? Just for sake of time, we're only doing this one way. But when he lifts up, can he maintain relative stability through his pelvis, right? Yeah. And not jump into the lower back. Or what Steve did was the neck. Seriously, like using the neck. Yeah, so his action would be, can he maybe lay the hands to the side, and then when he lifts up, can he do it without a bunch of craziness happening here? And maybe that's it. Yeah, that's about it. That's cool. But you feel it here, yeah? Yeah, big time. Yeah, and so down. So he might do that for repetitive maybe sets of 5 seconds or something like that. And then so roll up, Steve, and then I'll show what it looks like, and I'll do it real quick. So then you can see too, and everybody can see from the side. So the contrast of gray to black, and I go here, and this is flush. We've talked about that a lot through this little series. 2 points and the pubic bone. I could lay down something right here, and it's literally would just be pretty stacked right there, pretty flush. So then I take my right over my left. This is my tight side. So for me, that's about it. Just like how Steve was. That's about it. But you'll really be able to see when I lift up this leg where I tend to compensate for tight hips. So I go here, and then the first thing that I want to do is that. And that's just simply going back into the same position that I might be in, sitting and driving, sitting at a desk, right? So what I try to do in this is to help stay, or try to stay out of that, to where Steve is doing is just simply lifting up, but keeping all of this relatively flush. Now, this is true mobility in the hip. Pulling the toes to the knees. And you see, like, I can turn and smile and talk to the camera. When Steve did this his first time, it was kind of like, there was a lot going on. So we want to be able to just own the position. So on the other side, we all have 2 different sides. Pull here. A little bit better. But not trying or not doing anything with all of this. So practice that, continue to find your boundaries, and if this is the position that you find yourself in, to maintain this flush area here and a neutral pelvis, then that's cool.
Last piece here is for those of you guys that work in a desk job all the time and don't have the ability that Steve and I have to maybe find a mat during the day. You want to do that too in your sessions, but just making sure that we can really get into this outer hip and continue to help that open up. So Steve and I are going to take our left leg, but a cool thing to do, and we did this a little bit ago, is just to see if you can actually lift the left leg and lift it over and put it over the right knee without doing a bunch of movements, like a bunch of crazy stuff. Yeah, so when he does that,
So
like
this is it. That's as far as I go, and then in order to get higher, I'd actually have to.
yeah, look at all that. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, and I have to do the lift and fling and grab. Yeah. So what we want to try to do ultimately, and there's a few people that I've seen they can do this out there, and bless them because it's awesome. So for Steve and I, we're going to use our left leg and do whatever we have to do to get it up there. But what you'll see is that not on the ankle, he wants to slide it a little bit towards me, so it's just kind of on the ankle bone, right? It's not on the ankle bone, it's a little above. And then from here, we're going to pull the toes to the knees gently so that this isn't just completely relaxed. So just here. And then looking at your angle of this foot too, and looking down, he looks pretty good. It's coming out of his kind of the pelvic channel, straight down hip, knee, ankle, and then he's just going to sit tall. So remember that sitting tall is not rib thrusting, it's just ribs are down, we just try to kind of elongate the back. And this is probably enough, right?
Yeah. I can feel that tension. And matter of fact, it starts to get, if it gets too tight, if I'm doing too muand I feel it, I'll feel that across the knee.
Goes down
and
into the knee.
Back up a little bit.
Yeah, so it shows him that, hey, I need work here.
Yeah.
Right? Big time, because, and that's a really awesome thing too, is that everything is connected. Don't forget, don't ever lose track that we are one piece. Completely one piece. And so he finds that here, so yeah, he just hangs out. You can do this at the office, and then you would take this down. You could do it at home, you could do it at the dinner table, and then we'll do the other side so you can see. And a great thing to do. And then also, these moves, remember, this is one you can do often, but not just for like 30 seconds a day or an hour a day. A minute a day. An hour would be awesome. But is to do it multiple times.
Yeah.
Like he could get this
sets.
Sets. Movement snacks is a really great term, right? Movement snacks. So I'm going to do it. We'll do this for a few seconds, and then get out. And then maybe you have a meeting. Maybe you have to drive somewhere and come back, and you're sitting down like, oh hey, I can do this again.
Yeah.
And so throughout the day, we can begin to unwind this tightness.
So we didn't really cover this, but for all these other things, how long are we typically holding a lot of these?
Yeah, usually about 60 seconds.
About 60 seconds, and shoot for about a minute?
Yeah, and then you'll get to where, and maybe at first it's 30 seconds, and that's a lot, right?
Yeah.
But then, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and then 90 seconds ultimately is really cool.
Okay,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just knowing your boundaries too, because I know you mentioned that. Because if
Yeah.
somebody gets into position, maybe 30 seconds is too much initially.
Yeah, then 15 is
15,
fine.
okay.
You bet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and also that know your boundaries is becoming mindful with yourself and your movement, and that's really what you're trying to do here. Is that making sure that, hey, you know what, my knees are giving me a problem. Like, what am I doing that might cause that? Is it the knee, right, or is it
Something
else, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we began to go in search of that.
Yeah.
And so knowing your boundaries, finding your limits, finding your edges, and then being able to stay right within those.
Okay, awesome.
And then work from them. So knowing that your boundary doesn't have to always say and work from them. So we talk about here too, and this is the last piece, is just simply find a baseline.
Yeah,
You know,
and that's a big thing, is finding the baseline, because everybody's doing all the movements and they don't have a good baseline, which is creating the injuries.
Right.
So I want to thank you for doing this for me.
Man, this is awesome.
Where can people find you for the video? Because I'm going to put this in the description and all
Okay,
that.
so you can find me at mindfulbodyfitnesstulsa.com. That webpage is coming soon, within the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
So it's coming soon. It's being built right now. We can be found at Mindful Body Fitness on Facebook.
Okay.
And then mindful_body_fitness on Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this,
man.
man. Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.